Hi, my name is John, and today I'll be going through some last minute advice heading into the Opportunity Class exam, especially if you're not feeling confident and considering we don't have that long to go until the exam begins. Let's get into it. The New South Wales Opportunity Class exam, or the OC exam, is scheduled to be completed on the 7th of July 2021 this year. This means it's just around the corner, and if it's anything to go by in the previous years, it's going to be quite a bit different considering the recent changes with the Cambridge assessment, as well as the fact that typically sometimes they also change the date of the OC exam as well. So we know that this date that they scheduled can always move. So it's not going to be fixed. However, we're going to use this as a bit of a basis point because we know that it's still around the corner regardless. I made a video showcasing my tips and tricks prior to entering into the New South Wales Selective exam this year. That was quite popular, and I've actually received quite a few comments that actually have asked if I could make a similar type of video for the Opportunity Class exam, especially as they had siblings who are entering this exam as well. I'll be going over some tips and advice that I've already mentioned in the Selective exam as well, and some of those can still be applied here in the context of the OC exam, but I'll also include some that are unique purely for the OC exam. So for this year, the OC exam is still paper-based, which means it's very critical for you to make sure that you're writing your answers in the right bubble. You put the answer in the incorrect bubble, and that can lead to disastrous consequences because you're putting it in the incorrect spot. Make sure it's in the right spot so that you are not losing marks when you don't have to. If you put it in the wrong spot and you have to spend time fixing it up and correcting it, that actually wastes time so that you can't spend it on the questions that you might actually know. Less time, less marks. That's kind of the gist of it. This is particularly important in exams such as the thinking skills test component because you are only given about a minute per question. So you want to make sure that you have adequate enough time to read, comprehend, and then answer the question. If you have to spend a minute or two actually correcting where that bubble is supposed to be placed in, as opposed to actually just putting it in the right spot in the first go, then that's going to be quite disadvantageous for you, and you don't want to make that mistake. The second piece of advice that I'd like to share leads on quite nicely to the previous point. I did touch on it. So you want to be quite tactical with the amount of time that you spend on certain questions. So when you don't practice papers or practice questions at home, you might be quite flexible with the time you allocated per section. So instead of just purely thinking of it as a test at home, you kind of have to be quite switched on with it and be smart in the way you approach it. If you spend too much time on a certain question, that will leave you not enough time for other questions. So that can be bad for your marks as well. So instead, make sure to every so often have a look at the clock, manage and monitor the amount of time that you're spending per section. If you know that you have to move a bit quicker, then move a bit quicker. If you know that you still have some time and you might be able to revisit questions that you're not completely sure about, write a little star next to that paper so you know that you can revisit that question if you do have additional time. That allows you to best manage your time so that at the end of the test, you're not surprised when there's 6 questions left and you have 5 seconds left to go. Just like in the selective exam and previous OC tests as well, when the examiners say pens down, you have to put the pens down. Otherwise, they can deduct marks or disqualify you completely from the exam. They're kind of cutthroat like that. So definitely don't take your chances with it, even if all you need to do is just guess those last couple of questions if you didn't have the chance to do that. So try to save yourself from even doing that in the first place and giving each question a proper go. But if you really don't know about it and you spend enough time and you're still kind of blanking out on what to do, you just have to move on. In saying that though, there's always the approach that you can do always at the end is to guess. If you don't have much time, you only have a minute on the clock, just guess all the remaining questions. That's totally fine. Obviously, it's not the most ideal situation. You obviously want to attempt it with enough time, but if you don't have enough time, it's better to have a 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 chance of getting it correct, as opposed to leaving it empty and having a 0% chance of getting correct at all, which was unfortunately the case for some students during the selective exam this year. So hopefully you guys can try to avoid that mistake. The third piece of advice that I'd like to share is in regards to mindset. So the way you think about this is for the Opportunity Class exam, it is important, don't get me wrong, but it's not your final go. What I mean by this is Why do we want to get into an OC class in the first place? It's because it will help us get into a selective school. That's it. Or a private school, whatever it is. So you want to be thinking about how that or the bigger purpose is and work backwards from it. If you don't get into the opportunity class, all hope is not lost, because you can still have another go when you're trying to go for the selective school. This is also reinforced in terms of probability as well, because there's fewer spots available and more applicants going for the OC exam in proportion to the selective exam, where there are more spots. And although there's more applicants, since there's a lot more spots available in terms of percentage or probability wise, it's actually a higher chance of actually getting into a selective school compared to a OC class. Try to adopt the mentality of thinking about this as a learning opportunity. Just like what you're doing at home in terms of preparation or going to your tutor, getting that extra assistance, think of it as a learning opportunity. How can you use this experience to help you for the final test, which is for the selective goal? So maybe have a look and think about the mindset that you have to have when undertaking that exam. What about the hall, the environment that you are surrounded by, the rows of students that are actually completing that exam? That is all going to be quite a unique experience. So try to take that in, because you're really not going to experience something quite like it until you actually do that selective exam, a year and a half later. So try to absorb as much as you can, because that will definitely help you for the test that really counts. In saying that though, the opportunity class test is still very important. So I'm not saying it's an opportunity for you to just wing it, take it as a learning opportunity and not put an effort into it. By no means am I not saying that. Just think about it as if it doesn't work out, there's always a second go. One of the last points I want to share is you don't want to spend too much time on the writing component. The reason for this is, although, and you've heard this in my other videos, is writing is so important in understanding, not just for thinking skills, but for reading, and has so many flow-on effects for your future as well in other subjects. However, for the OC exam, there isn't a writing component as for this year anyway. So you don't want to be spending time on that, because you want to allocate all your time, all your resources, and all your brain capacity to think about the other topics, specifically reading, mathematical reasoning, and thinking skills. So those are the three areas that you want to focus on. And just like the selective video, one of the pieces of advice, since we only have a couple of weeks until the actual exam, is to really focus on the structure and the layout of that test format. It's quite different to any paper that you might experience before in the past. It's going to be quite different to maybe what you'll be doing in tutoring, what you'll be doing in ICAS, NAPLAN, and the like. The question styles is quite unique. And in order for you to understand what type of question style it is, have a look at the sample paper. The OC sample paper will give you a general outline on what to expect in terms of the structure to it. It was quite accurate for the selective exam, but for the OC exam, we're just hoping it's also going to be as accurate as well. Don't be focusing on too many other resources. You don't have too much time or luxury to actually do that. If you had more time, by all means, you can focus on whatever you need, because you have time to do that. But with only a couple of weeks to go, try to focus on that sample paper, narrow down some techniques, and just some things to keep in mind of when you're actually approaching questions of that type. In essence, it's important for you to take into consideration the advice that I've just shared. There's probably a bunch of other advice that I just left on the table, or that I've already included specifically in the selective school video that you should definitely have a look over, just because some of that would definitely apply for this as well. However, I think the points that I did mention is still applicable enough. And if you need more advice, just let me know down in the comments below and I'll be happy to share it. Otherwise, visit bingsacademy.com. I'll help you out there, and thank you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.